The kitchen is often the heart of the home, a place where both meals and memories are made. In recent years, the allure of vintage design has grown, with more homeowners looking to add a touch of the past to their modern kitchens. But how can you infuse vintage charm into your kitchen without compromising functionality? To add a vintage touch to your kitchen, incorporate antique furniture, use retro appliances, display vintage dishware, install classic cabinetry, and decorate with nostalgic accessories like enamel pots and lace curtains for a charming, timeless look. With the help of our kitchen remodeling contractor, we delve into various aspects of vintage design, from selecting the right color palette to choosing appropriate accessories to help you create a nostalgic and practical space. Why vintage style is timeless. Vintage style possesses an enduring appeal in design, a testament to its timelessness. Rooted deeply in nostalgia, vintage design evokes a sense of warmth and familiarity, often reminding us of simpler times. This emotional connection transcends generational boundaries, making vintage elements cherished in modern settings. Key to its longevity is the exceptional craftsmanship of vintage pieces. Crafted in an era where attention to detail and durability were paramount, these items bear the marks of quality and authenticity. Unlike mass produced modern items, vintage pieces have unique characteristics and stories, adding depth and character to any space. The aesthetic of vintage style is versatile, effortlessly blending with various interior designs. Whether in a rustic farmhouse kitchen or an eclectic urban apartment, vintage elements can be integrated to enhance the overall look. Lastly, vintage style offers a break from the transient nature of trends. Its timeless nature means it doesn't fall out of fashion, providing a sense of stability and enduring appeal. This quality makes vintage style not just a design choice, but a long-term investment in the aesthetic and emotional value of a space. Key elements of vintage design. Vintage design in home decor, particularly in kitchens, is characterized by a few distinct elements that collectively create a warm, nostalgic, and timeless atmosphere. Understanding these key elements can help you effectively incorporate the vintage aesthetic into your space. Color palette. Vintage design often features a specific range of colors. Soft pastels, creamy whites, and muted earth tones are common. These colors evoke a sense of warmth and comfort reminiscent of bygone eras. Furniture and cabinetry. Furniture pieces in vintage design usually have a sense of history. Look for items with distressed finishes, intricate details, or retro forms. In kitchens, cabinetry with glass fronts, classic wood designs, or painted vintage colors can immediately create an old world feel. Patterns and textiles. Floral patterns, gingham, and polka dots are often associated with vintage design. Incorporating these patterns into curtains, tablecloths, and upholstery adds an authentic touch. Accessories and decor. Vintage design is often about the finer details. Antique clocks, framed photographs, vintage cookware, and traditional light fixtures contribute significantly to the overall feel. Materials. Natural materials like wood, stone, and metal play a significant role in vintage design. These materials should look as if they've aged gracefully, adding to the charm and character of the space. Lighting. Lighting in vintage design is not just functional, but decorative. Chandeliers, pendant lights with metal accents, or lamps with fabric shades can greatly enhance the vintage atmosphere. Flooring. Traditional flooring options like hardwood or checkered tiles often form the base of vintage kitchen designs, providing a classic look that complements other vintage elements. By integrating these key elements, you can capture the essence of vintage design, creating a space that is both aesthetically pleasing and rich. Adding a vintage touch to your kitchen. Adding a vintage touch to your kitchen can transform it into a charming, nostalgic space without compromising its functionality. Here's how you can achieve this. 1. Choose a color palette. Select colors that reflect vintage charm. Soft pastels, creamy whites, or muted earth tones work well. Consider using vintage wallpaper or classic paint color to set the tone. 2. Incorporate antique furniture. Look for vintage or antique furniture pieces that can serve as focal points. A farmhouse table, a retro chair set, or a sideboard can add significant character. 3. Install classic cabinetry. If a remodel is within your budget, opt for cabinetry with a vintage look. Think glass-fronted cabinets or those with traditional wood designs. For a budget-friendly option, replace modern cabinet knobs and pulls with antique-style hardware. 4. Use retro appliances. Brands now offer modern appliances with a retro look. Incorporating a vintage-style refrigerator or range can instantly elevate the kitchen's vintage appeal. 5. Add vintage accessories. Decorate with vintage kitchenware like enamel pots, antique spice racks, or classic canister sets. Even small additions like a rotary phone or a framed vintage kitchen advertisement can make a big impact. 6. Incorporate vintage lighting. Replace contemporary light fixtures with those that have a vintage feel, such as pendant lights with metal accents or chandeliers with an antique finish. 7. Use traditional textiles. Dress your kitchen with vintage-style textiles. Lace curtains, checkered tablecloths, or floral-patterned seat cushions can add warmth and authenticity. 8. Display vintage dishware. Open shelving or glass front cabinets are perfect for showcasing vintage dishware or glass collections. Number 9. Flooring. Consider classic flooring options like checkered tiles, linoleum in a retro pattern, or aged hardwood floors to complete the look. 10. Personal touches. Finally, add personal touches like family heirlooms or flea market finds that have a story to tell. These items make the space uniquely yours. By thoughtfully integrating these elements, you can add a delightful vintage touch to your kitchen, making it a cozy, inviting space brimming with character. Mixing vintage with contemporary. Mixing vintage with contemporary design is an artful approach to creating a unique and balanced interior. This blend can bring warmth, character, and a sense of personal style to your space. Here are some tips on how to effectively mix vintage and contemporary elements. Start with a neutral base. Begin with a contemporary neutral base in your space. Think whites, beiges, or grays. This creates a blank canvas that allows vintage pieces to stand out without overwhelming the room. Select statement vintage pieces. Choose 1 or 2 vintage pieces as focal points in your room, such as an antique wooden table or a mid-century modern chair. These pieces should be distinctive and reflective of your style. Mix materials and textures. Combine different materials and textures for a layered look. For instance, a sleek modern sofa can be paired with a plush vintage rug, or contemporary metal light fixtures can contrast with rustic wooden furniture. Balance proportions. Pay attention to the scale and proportion of your furniture. Vintage pieces often differ in size and shape from modern ones. Ensure that they harmoniously coexist in the same space without one style dominating the other. Incorporate modern art and decor. Use contemporary art and decor to bridge the gap between old and new. Modern artworks can provide a fresh backdrop to vintage furniture, creating an interesting visual dialogue. Use color to unify. A cohesive color scheme can tie the vintage and contemporary elements together. Use colors from your vintage pieces as accents in more modern items like cushions, throws, or wall paint. Play with lighting. Lighting can dramatically impact the mood of a space. Combine sleek, modern lighting fixtures with the soft, warm glow of vintage lamps to add depth and dimension. Add personal touches. Personal items like family heirlooms, photographs, or collected objects can blend vintage and contemporary, making the space more intimate and meaningful. Don't overcrowd. With mixed styles, less is often more. Give each piece room to breathe so the space doesn't feel cluttered. This ensures that each item can be appreciated individually and as part of the whole. Evolve gradually. Mixing styles is a process that doesn't need to be rushed. Allow your space to evolve organically, adding and editing pieces over time as you find the right balance between vintage and contemporary. By thoughtfully blending the old with the new, you can create a space that is both timeless and modern, reflecting a rich tapestry of styles and eras.